Hello and welcome to another knife review on the edge. Thanks so much for joining me. So today we're going to be looking at this stout little fellow you see in front of you, made by WE Knives. So what we've got here is the WE Skreech, designed by Butch Ball. You can see his logo on the blade there, the two crossed knives. And he is the US custom knife maker. In fact, I've got another ball design, in that case made by Benchmade, and I'll show that a little bit later to show you the similarities in the design language. In terms of specifications of this knife, we've got a blade steel of CPM 20CV. Not a blade steel that I'm particularly familiar with, except for the fact that I do know that it cuts rather well, as my thumb can attest. But the experts say that it is very much the same as Bowler M390 in terms of characteristics. So good edge retention on par with Elmax S90V and M390. Corrosion resistance, the same as S35VN and M390. And toughness on par with D2, S35VN, Elmax, and again, M390. So, as I said, it seems like it has very good characteristics. I do have another knife here that I still need to do a review on, the WE Pier, that has the same blade steel. So I don't know if we are starting to transition to this away from the S35VN. I suppose as the new knives come out, we'll see. In terms of the rest of the materials on the knife, it is pretty much all titanium. So titanium frame, titanium mold pocket clip, and the Torx screws, and the pivot caps in titanium as well. The pivot itself is a caged ceramic ball bearing. In terms of overall dimensions of the knife, the blade length from that point closest to the tip of the blade is 82.3 millimeters or 3.24 inches. Thickness of that blade is 4 millimeters or 0.16 inches. Handle thickness 12.2 millimeters or 0.48 inches. And then closed length, or handle length if you will, is 108.1 millimeters, or let's get that centered there, or 4.26 inches. Overall length 190.4 millimeters or 7.5 inches. And then weight of this guy, he doesn't feel like he's the lightest knife, but if you see the nature of the way that it's been put together, that probably makes sense. Let's get the scale on there and actually have a look at that. Let's get him on, and we're on ounces. We'll leave it there, and that is 4.6 ounces. And then get it onto grams, my language, not milliliters, 130 grams. So, as I said, not the lightest. If you consider the size of the knife, it's not exactly the biggest knife around, but we'll see why as we start looking at the design of the knife. So let's get that open and do exactly that. So the blade shape, I guess, can be best described as a drop point blade. And when we get the other ball design that Benchmade opened just now, you'll see that that slope on the blade is very much the same as that knife as well. A very distinctive slope to that blade. In terms of the rest of the blade, nicely rounded around the back, so little sort of chamfered edges, not completely round, but chamfered edges, just to soften the back of the blade a little bit. Very neatly done. Got quite a distinct plunge line on the knife and a relatively big ricasso. The footsteps in the background there, that's my boy Cooper, the bull terrier. It's nearing feeding time, so he's going to start getting restless. Right, getting back to the knife. The edge of this knife, really well done, as we expect from WE. Very smooth, very uniform, matches on both sides, and nice and sharp out of the box. Again, like my thumb can attest. Flat grind, and then we've got a stonewash finish on that blade. Let's angle that a bit, see if you can get it. Very, very nice stonewash done on that. We've got a sharpening choil on the knife, definitely a sharpening choil and not a finger choil. You can choke up on the blade if you like living life dangerously. I certainly wouldn't suggest using that as a finger choil, but definitely a sharpening choil. We've got a recurve on the blade, and that's something that I don't particularly like, not from an aesthetics perspective or from a sharpening perspective. You know, if you're not the world's most experienced blade sharpener, that does create its own challenges. Very, very prominent thumb flipper, very prominent flipper tab. Got there eventually. In fact, if we close the knife, you'll see how that sticks out the back. So a huge flipper tab, some jimping around that side, so very easy to get hold of that. In terms of action on the blade on this knife, not really the smoothest. We get that sort of kind of sound to it, so not gritty, but not the smoothest, and also not really a drop shuddy guy, even though he is on those ceramic ball bearings. So this knife is new, so maybe it'll wear in a little bit over time. The rest of the design, let's just look at size of the knife. So in terms of size, my medium-sized hands, easy to get 4 fingers on there. And in fact, I've got extra space for that extra finger I carry around with me for whenever I need it. Yeah, okay. So plenty of space for bigger hands as well. That handle shape, not really rounded, so no beveled edge on that handle. In fact, if we hold it there, you can see quite a square shape to it. But because those edges are rounded, there's no sharp edges that dig into you. And when you get a hold of it, no real hot spots on the knife. Got this recessed area that your thumb falls nicely into, so very natural to hold like that, with a little bit of jimping. The lock design I really do like. So the lock has the usual stainless steel insert. So you've got stainless steel on stainless steel lockup. So no fear of blade lock stick. That's what the word I was looking for. So no fear of lock stick there. And then that stainless insert has that regular little extension that stretches into the back of the frame there as your over travel stop. But what I wanted to speak about, what I really do like, is you see that material that's been removed from the frame, both on the lock side and the show side, and that just creates enough room for you to get a little bit of the flesh in the thumb there to disengage that lock. So whether you disengage it that way, or if you use your forefinger to disengage, the same thing. Your forefinger gets into that little space created very easily and comfortably to disengage the lock. And I think that's a nicer way of doing it. It negates the need to take away the material, on the frame on that side to get to that lock, which creates that little bit of an asymmetric and I think a little bit of an untidy look to a knife. I think this is a much neater way of doing it. This knife also has the pin stop or stop pin, whichever way around it is, mounted through the blade, so that moves around with the blade as the blade is swiveling. So as that rotates around, if I move it like that and get in there, you can probably just see the channel on the inside there. So that pin travels in that channel as the blade moves around, and it moves around in that channel right to the end where the channel ends. So you've got the lock pushing the front of the blade that way, rotating it around that way. Those pins then move to the back of that channel, to the end of the channel, and that's what creates your lockup. So nice lockup there, and a neat and tidy way of doing that. Also on that lock, you can see here where we've got the material cut away to create that little bit of relief to allow the flex on that lock. A little bit of milling there in those 2 bars running around. Looks nice and tidy, a little bit of a design element there. Right, pocket clip, tip up carry, right hand only. You can see the 2 Torx screws running through it. The top Torx screw seems to have a shared function of keeping the pocket clip on and keeping the frame together. Not the deepest pocket carry, as you can see, quite a lot of material above the gap. 2 Torx screws to prevent that from swiveling around. But you can see if that's in the pocket, your pocket clip will obviously show, and quite a lot of the knife will stick up above the pocket as well. Nevertheless, neatly done. The finish on the knife is what they describe as a tiger stripe flame pattern. Also really neatly done. I see this popped up on quite a few of WE's knives. They obviously like it, and it is neat, it is handsome. And then the way that wraps around that back spacer, also very, very neatly done. I spoke about the weight of the knife, so let's have a look at that. The weight of the knife comes from, we've got 2 solid slabs of titanium on either side there. So if we get a little bit of torchlight in there, try to show you, there's no milling done on the inside there. So those are 2 solid slabs of titanium there. And then we've got that solid slab of titanium sandwiched between the frame and then that tiger stripe that I say just matches beautifully over there. So it emulates an integral design, but it certainly isn't an integral design. Those are three separate pieces of titanium. So if you want to take the knife apart, that's easy to do. So I think that's pretty much all about the design of the knife. I do want to bring that other knife on just to show you the comparison. So the other knife, as I mentioned, is the Benchmade 300 axis flipper, the other ball design, and you can see that distinctive shape, the similarity between those two. You can see that sloping blade that I mentioned, and the general shape of the blade the same as well. Handle shape as well, also very similar. I actually EDC'd this knife for a long time, really enjoyed it. Nice knife. And you know, if anyone has had an axis lock, you'll know that those are serious fidget toys. I'm not going to demonstrate that on camera because I know I'll just screw it up. So let's get that guy out of the way. This knife, by the way, again, supplied by Blades and Triggers in South Africa. Appreciate their support in supplying me knives to do reviews. And the price of this guy in South Africa, 5,505 Rand. Not cheap knife, but again, you know, you consider the materials that are used and the fact that it is a production version of a custom knife maker's design, kind of makes sense. And at Blade HQ, I've seen him online for $225 US. Comes in a couple of options. So the other finish, you get an antique bronze finish on the handle, and that's got a satin blade. And then there's one that is a completely gray stonewash finish. Same materials, same price. What is left for me to do, I think, is only the size comparisons, and move him down a little bit there, and I'll use the knives that I've been using in my reviews. If you've seen any of the others, I've got the Benchmade Mini Barrage, give you a sense of that. The other one is the Spyderco Manix 2. Get him open. And as you can see, very, very similar size between those two. Similar-ish size. I know it's a different blade shape, but you know, it's similar-ish kind of flow to the knives. So if you know, do EDC that or enjoy EDCing a knife similar to that, you'll enjoy this as well. In terms of weights of these two knives, I think without weighing them, very, very, very similar. There's also an axis lock. Let's get him out the way. And then the other one that I've been EDCing a lot of late is the Benchmade Slim Midi Marauder, I should say. Quite a lot of fluff inside of him as a result of that EDCing. But you can see there as well, very, very, very similar sizes. And that same kind of curve to the knife, I suppose, although it's got different blade shapes. But again, if this is the sort of knife you're looking for EDC, consider this as well. Have a look at that. Let's get that out of the way. And then another knife I've got on the table, and we may as well have a look at, is the Spyderco little sub-hilt. Roughly around the same sort of size, although a little sub-hilt is a little bit of a chunkier knife. And you'll see that if I hold them up like that. And I think he's a little bit heavier as well. It gives you a sense of that if you do know this knife, and that's also quite a lot of fluff inside that knife. Been EDCing him quite a bit too. Right, get him back on there. So guys, I think that probably pretty much covers everything I wanted to say about the knife. I don't think I've left anything out. Let's get this fella back on screen so I can leave you with that shot with his brother or sister, whichever way around it is, the two ball design knives. So guys, that was the WE Skreech frame lock. Very neat design, tightly put together well, nice quality as we expect from WE. Yeah, and nice knife. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. Please do subscribe and hit that bell icon. I'd love it if you joined me more often. And other than that, you go well and God bless.